found out about the Zabbaleen when I was young. My family's half Egyptian, so I used to travel every summer to go see my family, and a family friend of mine had taken me to the garbage village there when I was 12 years old, and it was just an amazing experience that stuck with me for so long, and yet everybody was so warm and welcoming, and it was just really, the experience stuck with me. And I went back in 2005, and I was actually looking to spend time in Egypt, and started volunteering at the recycling school that had just opened in the garbage village, and met the kids there that are in my movie now, and in the Garbage Dreams, and I just fell in love with them.
How did you meet them?
Well, when I first started, I actually had focused on about 6 kids at the school, and Osama wasn't one of the kids that, actually the teacher had said, you know, these are good kids to focus on. That was kind of the entry, and they, you know, obviously left out Osama and didn't feel he was a good fit for this documentary, and he's so charismatic, and I just fell in love with him because he's so raw and so open. And I think the one thing that I just always remember, there's one time he turned to me on the camera and just had this most amazing smile, and nobody's ever smiled at me that way, and I used to play the footage over that smile over and over and over, and I was already in love with him then, but it was kind of this thing I did because I just loved seeing his smile. So that was one of I picked him right away, and then the other two, Adham, because he's so ambitious and kind of cocky a little bit, and I loved Nabil because he was kind of an in-between character, more representative of where most of the kids were. Well, the Zabbaleen recycle 80% of everything they collect, and they make a living. They survive by recycling. They never made that much money from the fees that they got from collecting from people's apartments. It was the trash that was valuable. So that's the reason why they're really able to do that, because they see the trash as a valuable resource to begin with, and I think that's the most important mind shift that one has to get into in order to see the value and the potential in recycling and the value in trash. And then of course, you know, the labor is quite cheap. Their labor is cheap, so I think that's also one of the reasons Europe and the US hasn't been able to achieve the high recycling rates that the Zabbaleen are, mainly because the labor needed for recycling is expensive here in the Western world. So for example, they go and they separate the different plastics, and one thing they might find in plastics is shampoo bottles, for example. So they take the shampoo bottles, and that's a certain type of plastic. They take the cap off because it's a different plastic from the body. They'll take the body of the shampoo bottle, granulate it, and then the person who granulates it will then sell it to another family who will then wash the plastic. So they have a washing machine. They'll lay it out in the sun to dry once it's been washed, and then it gets exported as granules. So right now the Zabbaleen are in a predicament. They've had this job that they've been doing, which is recycling and collecting Cairo's garbage for over 100 years, and the Egyptian municipality hired 3-4 multinational companies to come and collect the garbage, and basically these companies are only contractually obliged to recycle 20% of everything they collect, and the rest would be landfilled. And what that means to the Zabbaleen is basically these multinational companies are coming and taking away their garbage, which is their source of livelihood. So this has been a very difficult time for the life of the Zabbaleen, but also I think for the youth, because they're collecting garbage and recycling garbage is all they know. It's really their identity, and so it's when you're a teenager, you're really trying to forge a new identity for yourself and figure out who you are in the world, and hear who they thought they were, who they were hoping to become, follow their family's job and profession. They're forced to rethink it. So it is a very difficult predicament, but what's so inspiring about the youth in this neighborhood is that they're really excited about just developing their trade and just moving forward and modernizing. They feel it's a very tough situation they're in, but they have so much optimism, and I think that's what makes the Zabbaleen so great, that they've always been able to overcome all the obstacles that have always been placed in front of them.
Yeah.
And when Adham goes to Wales and he sees how they recycle in the Western country, and he says all the trash going on the conveyor belt, he was kind of struck in horror and saw that so many little pieces were going unrecycled, and that's when he pointed out that every little piece can be recycled, and didn't quite understand why that was going to waste. So yeah, I love that moment, and I love that he was really going there to learn, and he and he ended up going there to teach. So. Well, I went to NYU Tisch School of the Arts, and when I was still there, I had met Miroslav Ondřejček, which was Milos Forman's DP and on a lot of movies, and he had worked on Amadeus and a whole bunch of others. But I'm half Czech actually. That's my other side. So I went there and I just basically just was an intern and helped him, got his coffee and doing all that. And the fact that I spoke Czech, was kind of a plus, and he was just amazing to work with. And it was because I didn't have a real job per se, but just interning from him, I just took the time to learn as much as I could from everybody, and I really did learn a lot from him. And he taught me to focus on the details. And
when you're shooting,
when you're shooting, it's just sometimes. He would felt like you didn't really have to say everything so straight on. That there's something, you could be subtle about how you show your imagery, which I really loved about his work. Well, I worked with Albert Maysles a handful of times as a DP. I was doing second camera, and he was doing a camera. And the thing that he taught me was, he said, people think that doing cinema verite is really like being a fly on the wall, but actually what it really means is you have to have a really good presence with people, because it's not that you're a fly on a wall, you're really there in the room, and your presence really does have an influence, and it's not just about not being present, because that's also a type of presence. So he made me really aware of what kind of presence I have, and if you've met him, he's got a wonderful, loving presence, so he definitely knows what he's talking about. This is my first documentary feature, and I made a few shorts, commercials, and PSAs, but nothing noteworthy. Most of my work was as a cinematographer beforehand.
Right. But you spent 4 years making this film, and really, what got you going? What made you take the leap?
Whenever you tell a story and you present facts, and there's two sides of a story, it's so easy to get caught up in which side is correct and which side is wrong. As a viewer, you tend to want to make a judgment on it, and as a filmmaker, I just was more concerned about seeing it through the eyes of the people that were living the experience, and whether they, really saw the whole picture as a municipal government might see it. Obviously they don't see it the same way, and whether their viewpoint is right or wrong is not really the issue. Is really how are these kids and how are this community, how do they feel about their lives? I mean, it's these people's lives are what the story's about. It's not so much about the larger issue. I wanted to make it, but I feel like the criticisms I get when I do get criticisms about the film is that it's not issue driven enough. And I feel that if it was that way, then you would start to pass judgment, or it would start to disconnect you from the people who are living this experience, because maybe maybe the Zabbaleen way is not the way of the future. Maybe it is about just hiring foreign multinational companies and disposing of all our trash in landfill. Maybe if that's really the way of the future, it doesn't really matter, because in a sense, these Zabbaleen communities still going to be feeling, and these youth are still going to be feeling the way that they're feeling about their lives, and their lives are just as significant as the lives of the viewer watching the film, making judgment on what's right and wrong.